Welcome back, brothers and sisters. I am Braden. This is Langley Outdoors Academy, and thank you for stopping by. All right, guys, what we're going to talk about tonight is a good old case of you give a mouse a cookie, he's going to want a glass of milk. As you guys I'm sure are aware, we just have a new ATF director, Steve Dettelbach. In fact, the gun controllers consistently said that's all they needed to stop the scourge of gun violence. The epidemic of gun violence would end if only the beleaguered ATF had a guidance in the sea of indiscriminate violence. However, now that they've gotten that guy, they've started attacking him. They've been impatient and irritated with the entire ATF, and now they're asking for more, and this is just the beginning. The article I'm about to show you is more lamentations of how beleaguered the ATF is, how insane the task is, how it can't be done. There's no digitization, there's no records, and even the gun control advocates are saying, this makes no sense, we need digitization. Isn't it interesting how that goalpost keeps on moving? That's what we're going to talk about tonight. Everything will be linked in the description box below, and I cannot wait to hear what you think in the comments field on this one. Now I'm going to say a quick word from our sponsor, LAS Concealment. This is the last video they sponsored, and they made this whole week possible, so thank you so much to LAS Concealment, but let's get it. Now, if you're in the market for a holster for your favorite freedom tool, then you need to check out LAS Concealment. With LAS Concealment, you get a custom piece of equipment molded specifically for your personal choice of freedom. Made from Kydex and designed to keep you comfortable and safe in your day-to-day activities. With custom designs from inside and outside the waistband, multiple patterns, multiple colors, they've got something you're looking for. Check them out in the description box below, and thank you again to LAS Concealment for making the videos this week possible. But now, guys, let's get the violins ready. Let's look at the ATF, how beleaguered they are, how their firearms tracing program is simply overwhelmed, and it takes eternity to do anything, except when they need to do faster. But that's different. Let's get it. Quote, it's just insanity. ATF now needs 2 weeks to perform a routine gun trace. Boxes of paper records fill nearly every corridor of the ATF's National Tracing Center, where agents are struggling to keep up with the surging requests from local police. Now, we've talked about this a few times. A big ploy that they've done, specifically in the media, some of the politicians over the last year and a half, in order to build sympathy for the ATF around the crisis and the importance of their gun violence epidemic, they basically state how overwhelmed they are, and they just need simple solutions to get in front of it. Granted, those simple solutions are things like registries. That ain't going to happen. But they still paint the picture, and this is another case of that. Check this out. Martinsburg, West Virginia. Inside a windowless office in a nondescript brick building, a lone man is staring at 3 computer screens while typing out lines of code. He's among a group of developers and coders who aid federal agents responsible for tracking down the owners of guns used in crimes across the United States. But these computer experts use their talents not to modernize the gun shop records that pour into this facility, the National Tracing Center operated by the Bureau of the ATF. They are in fact doing the opposite, converting the digital files into screenshots akin to paper records so they cannot be searched electronically. That's the point. It is against the law to create a national registry. Everyone watching this video, and if you're new, probably has the inclination, a national registry has always preceded a national firearm seizing. It's always happened that way. It will always happen that way. The first thing that they need before they do any type of seizure of firearms in a nationwide status, they need to know where they are. That's the point, that the digitization has been refuted, and it's been a long-standing law on the books on a congressional level. But anyway, let's keep going. Quote, it's just insanity to think this is how we're operating, said Edgar Domenech, a former ATF deputy director. Federal agents can run scans on things such as license plates and fingerprints to instantly find out who they belong to. But when it comes to guns, they're essentially handcuffed by a 1986 law that keeps the ATF stuck in the past. If ATF moving into the modern era, in their terms, means that they have a full-blown registry, enjoy the past. I hope you have some bell-bottoms. This is not something that's a good thing for the rights of American citizens, for the national government to have a searchable database for Second Amendment rights for them to scour as much as they want, whenever they want, at their whim. That is this close to some very bad things that have happened in our past history within the last 100 years. I can think of a few governments. Germany, China, lots of them. That's just 2 of them. Anyway, let's keep going. The nearly 40-year-old regulations prevent the agency from keeping searchable, digitized gun transaction records, and efforts in Congress to modernize the system have failed. That's because everyone understands and knows that a digital registry is going to be akin to seizing of firearms when the time is right. It is just a baby step. It is death by 1,000 cuts. That's the whole principle here. If you were to allow the ATF to make an actual digital registry, now what they're saying here is the pictures basically creating PDFs, not having them be searchable, is not a registry. That's debatable. But anyway, that's what they're saying here. So, listen to how bad it is. Boxes upon boxes of paper records fill nearly every corridor of the ATF's tracing facility. The space was so cluttered that the agency brought in 40 cargo shipping containers, which sit outside the building, each filled with 2,000 boxes. Again, cue the violins. If you didn't have these in a centralized database in a paper form, you wouldn't have a need for any kind of digital registry. But we can't talk about that. No, we have to continue down the road of, well, we have all of these 4473s and all these gun records that have been basically, I'm not going to say seized, because that's not really the right word, surrendered by closing gun shops, and we have over 1 billion records. If you didn't have those records, you wouldn't have to have a problem, would you? But you do. So let's just keep going down this road. But just because you have the problem that's self-imposed doesn't mean we get to give you a digital registry. Republicans have long argued that allowing police access to an electronically searchable repository of gun records is tantamount to a nationwide firearm registry, which would make it easy for the government to seize people's weapons. 100% correct. No argument on that one. In April, 18 GOP senators signed a resolution opposing Biden administration regulations that will require gun dealers to retain their entire history of transaction records. Now, that's the exact same principle, right? And if you look at the breadcrumbs here, hey, Biden administration says FFL shops, you have to maintain them forever. You can't destroy them after 7 years anymore. Well, if you maintain them forever, eventually when they go out of business, those all have to be surrendered to the ATF. So you're just getting more and more data. You're making your own problem of what you're complaining about right here worse. So what's the solution? Stop bringing in 4473s? No, that would be crazy. That would be giving up control. We need to make it a digital registry. That's what'll solve the problems. Death by 1,000 cuts. You boil a frog in a pot of water. That's how you do it. Real slow. Quote, "It's just very cumbersome process that doesn't need to be cumbersome," said Lindsay Nichols, Federal Policy Director with the Giffords Law Center to Prevent Gun Violence. Quote, "We could do a lot to reduce gun violence without a full-scale gun registry." If you can honestly sell me on a case that would say, hey, having a centralized database with all the guns that have ever been sold in the United States would stop crime, I would be very apt to listen while I'm laughing because it's impossible. The entire principle of this article is that they're trying to provide research and answers and tracing, which happens after a crime. So the idea that this Giffords.org policy director is saying is, well, it would stop crime. How so? It would tell you what happened when someone went wrong. It wouldn't tell you what they're going to do. It's not a precog, right? It doesn't make sense on his face, but that doesn't matter. They want the registry. But opposition to such a registry is fierce. Keep in mind, same people who are saying ATF needs a director. It's rudderless. It's impossible. We just need to make some common sense solutions. Same people. Now they want more. You give a mouse a cookie, wants a glass of milk. And here we go. This is an amazing quote. "If you're talking about a national database for firearm traces, you're also talking about listing every gun owner by name on that database," said Mark Oliva, lead spokesman at the National Shooting Sports Foundation, a firearms trade association with a lobbying arm that almost exclusively backs Republican candidates. Quote, "We've seen abuses of that." Yeah, no kidding. Of course they back Republican candidates. Republican candidates are the ones that are not abusing the rights and going for all-out assault weapon bans, with the exception of 2. You're not doing for national registries. I mean, yeah, no wonder. That's kind of like, I can't go down that road. But the point is, when you give this mouse a cookie, this mouse is going to want a glass of milk. When it gets the glass of milk, it's going to want a napkin. When it gets the napkin, it's going to want to get a night-night story so it can go bed. This is the whole point. They constantly want more and more and more. And at a certain point, you got to say no. And in this case, no firearm registry, because that leads to horrendous things in human history. And that's what I've got for you. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below, and I will see you tomorrow morning on the Bullet Points. I'm Braden. See you later.